Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and I just released a new blog post over there at my blog, toots.alexmercedcoder.com. Again, if you remember in my background, I do have a small little cocktail named Wally, who is always out and about on the weekends and is enjoying a nice Saturday morning, and oftentimes thinks that I'm talking to it when I record these videos, as you've probably noticed if you've watched a lot of these videos. But in this new blog post, I do a tutorial on Fastify, which is one of the popular alternatives to Express. So essentially, like in Express, when it comes to those sort of like core web server frameworks that people build all the other more robust frameworks on top of, the big ones are going to be Express, Fastify, and Koa. To a lesser extent, Polka. And then to an even lesser extent, there's like the framework that I made called Merver that I'm probably the only one who's ever played with. But I was pretty happy that I built it. You know, it's always nice just to build a thing that know you can. So, yeah. So let's go into Fastify. But we're also going to implement a templating language, and there's a whole bunch of them: Pug, EJS, Nunjucks, Mustache, Handlebars. You can go on and on and on. But Liquid is a special one, because it's one that is particularly used on the Shopify platform. So if you ever, one job market is the Shopify developers job market, and for that it's just really getting good with using the Liquid templating language. And people have created plugins so that way you can use Liquid in the Nodeverse. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to use Liquid in our Fastify server. So you'll get to learn two things, Fastify and Liquid. So I'm going to start a new project. I'll just open up the blog post because we're going to work through this tutorial. Okay, this is actually my previous version of this project. I'm debating whether I should. Yeah, I'll just keep that one open. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up. Escape to get out of that. But essentially, what you're doing is you're creating a new node project. Okay, so you would do like npm init-y in an empty folder. Now I've already done this, so I already have a package.json. My package.json, what I did is I added this type module property. Now the coolest thing about like sort of the newest versions of Node, I think this feature's been added sometime since like version 14, like a late version 14. I'm currently running 15.12. But basically, again, for the longest time, Node had one way of importing exporting modules. That was like the whole require module that exports. And then what they did is introduce like two file types, MJS, meaning module, and then CJS, common.js. Common.js files would use require module exports, and then MJS would use like the official like JavaScript standard, which is modules with like the import export you might be familiar with from React. But recently what they did is they added this property to your package.json where if you just want to use the module syntax, you can just say type module, and then you can just use the module syntax all around. Now, always the issue with this is, you know, if I do something like this, then you need those newer versions of Node. This won't work on an older version of Node. I learned this recently when I came out with a really fancy Express template, and some of my colleagues couldn't use it because they were running the LTS version of Node. Okay, so which that version doesn't support necessarily this property yet. Okay, but I think it's worth it. It's nice to not have to be switching importing, exporting syntax when I'm going from front end to back end. Okay, so that is cool. And all you have to do now is kind of add like top level await, and then I'll never want to use Deno again. Although I really like Deno. Deno's cool. Cool. So that's what that does. Okay, I'm going to create a script, but I'm going to create a new file because we're going to do this whole exercise again. So I'm going to say server2.js. Okay, and I'm going to change my start script to do server2.js. Okay, so instead of doing node server.js, I'm going to do node server2.js. You could do whatever would you want to call your file name. So mainly you have a package.json and some sort of file to create your server in. And then you can install these libraries. Fastify. Fastify is our web server framework. Liquid.js, it's our templating library. Point of view is something that allows you to connect a templating library to a Fastify web server. So that's what these three things do. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to import these libraries. So I'm going to import Fastify from Fastify, I'm going to import point of view from point of view. I'm going to import liquid. I'm going to call it liquid J. I'll just call it liquid. Oh, actually, why am I putting it in string? I'm going to import. I want to do this uppercase. Liquid from liquid.js. Okay, cool. So now what I got to do is I got to first create our server object. So create our server, which we're going to say const server equals Fastify. And then I think I want like logger, and then I want that to be true. So that way there's logging. You can already kind of see some examples of the logging down here. Now, also what I want to do is create our create liquid engine. That I don't remember off the top of my head, so I'm going to refer to our previous here. So here's where we create the liquid engine. So basically I'm saying, hey, engine equals a new liquid. And then basically I'm just saying, hey, go look in the views folder for files with the extension of liquid. Even though if you do that, you still gotta write the full file paths, which is fine. I find that more intuitive anyways. Okay, so let's go back to server2.js and say const engine equals new liquid. And then we pass in the configuration object. And this is going to be the root, if I remember right. Let me just double check here. Yeah, root extension name. And now basically what's going to happen here is that we need to pass in the file path. Okay, so I'm going to use the path library, which is something built into Node for like generating like where are you, a file path. I'm going to run this line here because this line actually would, for some reason, sometimes not. This variable might become is predefined usually in Node, so you'll be able to just use underscore dir name. But for some reason it wasn't working for me, so what I did is I just regenerated it, which is just doing this. Path.resolve just basically figures out like, hey, where are you? Like, what is your working directory? Okay. And then this is, yeah, that's that. Okay, so that's just the directory name. Okay. So I'm just gonna bring in path. So let's go over here and import path from path. I'm gonna copy, even though this really didn't do much of anything. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I'm questioning whether it's doing what I think it's doing. So I'm gonna console.log dir name. Okay, and maybe do that now before, well, let me just put here underscore dir name and then extension name. And how do I do it over here? Liquid. Although should I be writing .liquid now that I think about it, or should it just be liquid? Let me go back to the point of view documentation. Point of view npm. Okay, so again, the point of view documentation allows you to kind of connect all these different templating libraries. There's quite a few of them. So let me just scroll down to the section about liquid. Here we go. Yeah, they put .liquid in there. Okay, yeah, so I guess so. Okay. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong file. Dir name plus views. And extension .liquid. Although it doesn't matter because it's not really working with any of that. You'll see what I mean in a second. We're going to point it directly to the file name. But I'm going to run this real quick because I'm curious as to what that console log will put out. Liquid is not a constructor. Is it not? Oh, that's right. This needs to be wrapped in curly brackets because there's other stuff in there. So I'm destructuring liquid out of there. There we go. Okay. Blog Fastify, blog proj. Okay, so that works. So that would do what I want it to do. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Now, next what we need to do is start writing routes. Okay, first we'll just do a normal hello world server.get. If you use Express, you kind of know how this goes. Okay, and then we have the request, we have the response, and then we say response dot send to send the response, and we say hello world, and then let's go set up the listener. So server dot listen. Okay, if I'm gonna be on port 4000, and then we give it a callback. Okay, which is gonna be error, takes these two arguments, error address. So we're gonna say, hey, if there's an error, so we'll say console.log, if there's an error, log the error. If not, just say listening on port 4000 for now. Okay, technically what I should do is say listening on, and then do like a space here, then do like a plus address, because the address is actually the URL. So now if I run this npm start, see it's listening on there. So let's go try it out. Follow the link, and there's hello world. Okay, because see basically this is the route for the root. Simple as that. Now let's render a template. So if I want to do response dot view, so it's not render like Express, then you see the file path. So we'll say dot slash views slash we'll just use cheese. Cheese. Now what happens, that tells you which of these templates that I have in my views, and see these files are called .liquid files. Okay. And those have a little Shopify logo next to them, I just realized that. And then you can pass it an object full of data. This particular template, see right here what we're doing is we're using variables. Now which variables this template can use are based on what we send it. So over here I'm going to send it a variable called cheese, because that's what the template expects. And we will say the cheese is Munster. Okay. So I'm saying render this template with this data. Okay. Yep, the bird thinks I'm talking to it. It's like, hey Alex, how you doing? Why you keep talking to me? None of this coding stuff makes any sense. Okay, so did I restart my server? I think I did. Yeah. So now if I go to slash cheese, because that was the route we defined. Oh, it says not finding slash cheese. So let me make sure I wrote slash cheese. Oh, I did not. Okay, it's still just the normal one. So it's just the home route. And it's saying response.view is not a function. Oh, there's another step I had to do. I had to do like server.register. And I have to register this. I have to register the engine. So right here, server.register. So I'm saying, okay, hey, I want to register this using this engine. So I'll just copy this. Save us some time. And again, all this is inside the blog post. Okay. Oh, wait, I can paste over that. I want to paste over this. There we go. Now let me restart that. Let's try that again. Because all that is needed so that way it knows like where to work, like what function to run to break down the template. And there you go, Munster. And see, it's using Munster, not cheese. So if I look at the template, it says cheese, but because that's the variable name. And these curly brackets mean, hey, don't do the word, do the value of the variable cheese. Okay, now if you read through the rest of the blog post, I go into like how to do conditionals, to sit there and say, hey, like if this is true, show this on the HTML. If not, show something else. And again, these are HTML files, so you can just write HTML in here. But there's a lot of good stuff. So if you use templating libraries like EJS or ERB or Jinja, like Liquid's not going to be much of a stretch. But yeah, it's kind of, just always nice to know that you have other tools, and you start realizing that like a lot of these frameworks, they all kind of do the same thing in almost the same way. So it's like learning one versus the other becomes pretty straightforward because you always know that generally is going to have all the same tools. You just need to go look for the tools that you're used to and just figure out how they do it in that framework. But otherwise, have a great day and enjoy.